This is the 2022 Bentley Continental GT Speed, and Bentley claims it is the most capable, performance-focused Bentley ever, with no compromise to comfort or luxury. And after over 600 miles from LA to Vegas and back and multiple runs through the canyons, I can confirm that at least in this instance, Bentley is 100% correct with that statement. Since this is the Speed model, let's start with performance, because in front of me I have a 6-liter twin turbocharged W12 producing 650 horsepower and 664 foot-pounds of torque. Now that's good for 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds and a top speed of 208 miles an hour. Now all of that power goes to all four wheels, a standard all-wheel drive system via an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, which is very, very quick, but more on that later. Now, that 650 horsepower figure is a lot, even for a vehicle that weighs over 5,000 pounds. It's more than enough for this car to feel incredibly fast. Now, all of that power comes in down low because this engine doesn't rev all that high. It doesn't really rev past 6,500 RPM. So you get a ton of low-end torque, which means this car picks up incredibly fast. Even when you're already cruising along, you drop a couple gears, put your foot down, and it just absolutely takes off. You can really feel the G-forces acting on the car as it wants to sort of move all that weight around at an incredible pace. So despite that weight and despite the power output, this car, there's no scenario in which this car feels slow. On the highway, put your foot down and you have passing power for days. And here in the canyons, even again with this enormous amount of weight, this car does not feel slow in any way. Now, that weight is an important figure. Over 5,000 pounds is a lot to lug around over some canyon roads. But this car has a bunch of really interesting trickery to make that happen. For starters, active anti-roll bars. Now, that may not seem like that big of a deal, but in practice, they are really surprising. Now, essentially what the car will do, it has a little electric motors connected to the anti-roll bars, and the goal is to eliminate any body roll whatsoever, and it does so. It's difficult to believe how a car this big can be this stable even at very high speeds. This car remains so incredibly composed through the tightest of corners and the most aggressive of maneuvers. Basically makes the best use of the tires. That contact patch is constantly flat on the road, and the result is not only great stability but tremendous grip. This car does have a very sort of point and squirt kind of characteristic about it, where you can throw it into a corner at any point, mash the throttle, and there's enough grip to pull you out. The car does not get unsettled in any way, shape, or form. You drive it traction on, traction off, it doesn't matter. It's so incredibly planted, and it translates all of that 650 horsepower to the road. It's really efficient. Now, also, when you bring in the fact that this 8-speed dual clutch automatic is one of the best in the business, now you have a real recipe for a car that, even though I know 650 is a lot, this car feels more powerful than that. When it picks up and it goes, it frankly feels like it has another 50 horsepower under the hood. That it really feels more powerful than its figure suggests. And frankly, having a car that's this big but this fast is still a little mind-boggling, and because it's fast but it's also stable. Now remember, this car also has to be luxurious. This is a Bentley of all things. So not only is it fast, but it's also incredibly comfortable. The W12, when you put it in drive and just either comfort or Bentley mode, just driving around town, is completely quiet. It completely dies down and delivers that sort of smooth power you'd want from such a big, torquey engine. Put it in sport mode and the active exhaust opens up and you get a lot more sound, and this car really does gain a sense of urgency. Now, in a lot of cars, multiple drive modes don't make that much of a difference because they only, they maybe sharpen throttle response, something like that, maybe heavier steering. In this car, it makes a drastic difference in the suspension front. In comfort, it's truly floaty and comfortable. I remember I did over 600 miles in this car from LA to Vegas, purely in comfort mode on the highway, and it does such a phenomenal job of isolating imperfections on the road and exterior sound. However, when you come up here to the canyons and you put it in sport mode, it tightens up to the point where you'd really want a car like this to be. It's not overly stiff by any means, but it's tight enough to manage its way through the corners and deliver a interesting and actually quite pleasurable driving experience. Now, this road that I'm driving on right now is very tight, and I brought this car here purposely for that, because this is the car that I test a lot of smaller, lower horsepower kind of cars. But this car, even with 650 and its big weight, it tackles these tight little turns with such composure and so much poise that it just inspires confidence to go fast, whether in sweepers and tight corners. It really does make the most out of that active anti-roll bar system, and it shows me that all the claims that Bentley made about that system are 100% correct. They 100% translate to the road. Now, all of that performance isn't worth much if you don't have the brakes to really stop it and handle it. And thankfully, this car does. It has the biggest brakes ever fitted to a production vehicle, 10 pistons in the front, and they're also carbon ceramic. The result is that you can beat on this car all day long and the brakes never fade. But think about how difficult of a task that is for those brakes to handle. 5,000 pounds coming into a corner at really high speed and having to slow down and do so consistently and repeatedly. These brakes are absolute superstars. On the road, yeah, they might be a little bit grabby, but up here, once you got some heat in them, they are really, really good performers. And frankly, this car, the result of having that suspension that's good, the brakes that are good, and the powertrain that is good, is it translates to an experience that is genuinely enjoyable. Now, at the end of the day, this is still a Bentley. And one of the most important and I think best things Bentley did with the styling of this car was not going all out. They didn't make it too racy by adding extra wings and spoilers and all this other stuff. They kept it quite classy. And this car has such a menacing demeanor about it, because outside it may look black, but it's actually green. It's very dark green, and actually the interior is green too. But on the exterior, this car has a special package that gives you all the gloss black trim and the grille, around the headlights, the wheels, and the black and the green together make for such a beautiful looking car. I will say, whoever optioned this tester did a fantastic job. This is easily the best looking Continental GT I've ever seen. So you have green on the outside, and again, it's very restrained. The wheels themselves are the standard 22-inch Bentley Speed wheels, but obviously now they're finished in gloss black. And it would be so easy in a car like this to just drench it in carbon fiber and call it sporty, but Bentley didn't do that. They stuck to the sort of elegance of the car, and it really shines with that restraint. Now, inside, Bentley used that same level of restraint because you're not going to find any carbon fiber in this interior. Instead, what you'll find are the materials you've come to expect from a Bentley. And like I mentioned earlier, the inside of this car is also green, alluring to that spec that this is easily the best spec GT I've ever seen. Green on the inside with leather, suede, excellent stitching throughout. These seats are fantastic. They have inflatable bolsters on the side, so you can customize the seat to hold you in as much as you want, or if you're a little bit larger, then you can open up the seat to give you more space and comfort. They're more than fine for a road trip. After driving over 9 hours in total, like 2 days ago, I was perfectly fine. I could have gotten out of this car and done a couple more hours worth of driving. It really is a relaxing experience, and the way this car covers miles so comfortably, I think, comes down to the interior. I don't really have many complaints. I think all the ergonomics of the interior are nicely laid out, and a bit of a rarity these days, we have buttons, physical buttons, no capacitive anything, no touch, nothing. Physical buttons, and I'm becoming more and more of a fan of that as time goes on. Sound isolation wise, it's a Bentley, it's whisper quiet on the highway. Now at this point, I've been gushing about this car for nearly 10 minutes at this point, so I should tell you what I think might be some of the negatives. And I'm really gonna have to nitpick here because this is a fantastic vehicle. Things I don't like: the driving position. It's a bit too high. I feel like I'm sitting way too close to the roof, and frankly, anybody above 6 feet might struggle for headroom in this car, which is kind of strange considering how large the Continental GT is. Second thing I don't really love is the shifter in the middle, because when you grab it to shift, it sort of creaks and makes some rattles that aren't very luxurious. that's really about it, frankly. The seats themselves are great, the driving experience is great, the suspension is great. I think it looks stunning, it looks the part. This is, I mean, when you get to a car of this price point, it's really difficult to find things to dislike about it because everything has been ironed out. Speaking of that price point, this car has a base price of $275,000. However, this car that we're testing today, as spec'd like this, comes in at over $350,000. And frankly, that is a lot of money. Even at $350,000, I could make a case for this car, because if you think of what is above this car, what's the next step? You're looking at Rolls-Royce, and any car from Rolls-Royce that's comparably sporty to this, meaning the black badge Ghost, now you're looking at almost $500,000. So would you rather have the Rolls or the Bentley and $150,000 in your pocket? That's definitely something to consider. So I think the Rolls does something better than this car does, but I think the Rolls is much more into the comfort luxury aspect with the sporty edge. This car has more of a true dual personality between luxury and sportiness. So there's endless options, especially if you're in this price segment. It really feels like a quality product, like it's really well engineered, and what it's able to do, the driving experience that it's able to deliver, is definitely fitting of that price tag. So as my time comes to a close with the Continental GT, it's a bit of a sad moment because Bentley has said that they're going to ditch internal combustion by 2030, meaning this is one of the last, if not the last, W12 we'll ever see from the brand. And so this is really Bentley flexing its muscles, Bentley internal combustion at its absolute best. And I really think that translates to the road. And when you think back to that original statement that they made, saying most capable, performance-oriented Bentley with no compromise to comfort or luxury, I really can't disagree. I will be the first to say when a manufacturer really fluffs up a press release to make people believe it's the latest and greatest thing. But with the Speed, this is the latest and greatest thing. This is the best Bentley I've ever driven, and all around, they absolutely nailed it. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, help us grow. And if you want to see any particular vehicle, leave it in the comment and I will do my best to get it. But until next one, take care.